Hey everybody, Anthony from Lazy Baits Co. here. If you're anything like me and love making your own baits, you might want to make molds for them one day. And today, I'm going to go over our process and some of the products we use. Here we got Specialty Resins Cast Mold 25T. I'm going to go over why we choose to use their products and our process on how we cast these molds. Stay tuned. So let's get right into it. First, you're going to need your master mold. Whether it's wooden lure and clay, we use a resin, 3D printed resin. You're going to need a scale. You're going to need a mixing cup, something to mix with, some gloves. You don't want this all over your hands. I like to use a mold release. It's not entirely necessary. And silicone, obviously. So, what I like to do first, I take some of the mold release and I just spray a little bit on here. Brush it around. Then, we're gonna mix up some silicone. But how much do we mix up? So, Specialty Resins has a really cool calculator on their website. You measure the length, width, and depth, and it'll tell you how much silicone you're going to need. I already did this. I know what this takes. It takes 600 grams total. So, this is a 10-to-1 by weight. So for 600 grams, we're going to need 545 grams of part B and 54 of part A, roughly. 545 and a half, 54 and a half. Makes 600 at a 10-to-1 ratio. So, we'll turn our scale on, zeroed out. I like to start with the part B. So, while I'm pouring this, we'll go over a little bit of why we ended up using Specialty Resins products. As you see, our master molds are 3D printed, and it's a 3D printed resin. The biggest problem we had with this was cure inhibition. So with a platinum cure silicone, it will not cure against this surface. The nicest thing about this tin cure is that, let's get that. The nicest thing about it is it will cure against almost any surface. So there's ways to get this to work with a platinum cure. Put a little too much in there. But there's ways to get this to work with a platinum cure, but it's very inconsistent. When you're making a mold, obviously you want every bait to be the same. You want every mold to be the same. So consistency is key. That's why we ended up using this Cast Mold 25T, because it's a tin cure. We're going to put the part A in. Because I added a little too much, we got 556, so that's going to be 55 and a half of part B. $56, good enough. Get that out of the way. Another nice thing about SRC products is that you can buy them directly from Specialty Resins, right from their website. There's no dealing with distributors, no, having to order from whoever, you order right from them and they ship it directly to you. And they're made right here in the US, so, you know, we're supporting a US company. I'm gonna mix this real slow. You don't want to introduce too much air into it. I use a vacuum chamber. It's not entirely needed. This stuff degasses very well on its own. And we'll just stir this up. Make sure you get all the stuff around the edges. Make sure it's all nice and green. So, from here, my next step is to degas it. I degas it before I pour it in the mold. I find that it's much easier. You got more space in the container and to get a majority of the air bubbles out, because inevitably you mix some into it. So, let's degas it quick. When it gets to the top like this, close it off, otherwise it'll overflow. I like to put some more air back in there, and we'll just do it again. Okay, so that's good enough for this portion of it. So, my next step, I take these masters, put them in there, put them in the vacuum chamber. We're going to want to pour nice, slow, thin stream if we can. With this stuff, it doesn't make much of a difference from what I've seen. It cures perfect. No air bubbles on the bottom surface. I know a lot of platinum cure silicone, like, you know, it traps air in in little pockets, but I have not had that problem with this stuff at all. So I'm not overly concerned with pouring it slowly. We'll take it, try to scrape everything out of there. I think that's good enough. And I'm going to degas it again. Another tip I like to do is I take this little hammer here with a plastic end on it, and I just tap the chamber. And this is, in my mind, any trapped air at the bottom, it'll free up, and then it won't be on the surface of the bait. If anything, it'll be throughout the mold, which isn't as important. Give it one last vacuum run. So I'll lock that off and leave it for a few minutes. What's nice is this has a 1 hour work time, so we're good. It's probably been in here, I don't know, 10 minutes maybe, if that. Once it finishes degassing, I'll take it out and I'll set it on the counter, and I like to level it. I like my molds to be level, so they're not like, that thick on one side and thin on the other. And you'll see why when we get to pouring these and making the actual bait, why that's important. Cure time on this is 16 hours. So what I like to do is come home from work, 4 o'clock, whatever, I'll pour a mold, and then I'll wait, and by the next day, next afternoon, it's already, good to demold. So let's get these out of the vacuum chamber here. This away. Give these a little tap again. And let's get them nice and level. And somehow that's perfect. So we'll leave that. We'll come back in 16 hours. We'll demold them, and I'll show you how good of a job this picks up details. It's absolutely amazing. Okay, so it's the next day, about 18 hours later. Everything's nice and cured. I'm gonna demold these. You see how nicely it demolds and picks up every detail. No cure inhibition. And that is the biggest reason we chose to use the Cast-A-Mold 25, because it's a tin cure. Unlike a platinum cure, which is very prone to becoming inhibited, the cure process becoming inhibited by the surface it's touching, you won't have that problem with this. So that's our mold. Check back in the next video. Part 2 is going to be using the Fabricast 50 to cast this bait. Hopefully you learned something. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure you check out Specialty Resin. Subscribe down below. Check out their website. They got awesome products. Fabricast 50, that's what we use for our lures. The Cast-A-Mold 25T, that's what we use for our molds. If you want to check us out, it's at Lazy Baits Co. on all social media and lazybaitsco.com. Thanks for watching.